on that note, we'll go ahead and record. Yes, no, but thank you. Did speaking of like we're gonna talk about Dune Prophecy episode 3, obviously, but did you see the I mean, since we like to irritate Kansas City Chiefs fans, did you see the Chris Collinsworth
I just
giving
That play
credit?
had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with the Chiefs.
Nothing.
It was an awesome play that he somehow got credit for both in fantasy. That's another conversation for another day.
Right.
But it was an awesome play that is just immediately ruined by Collinsworth being like, "Oh, it's in Kansas City, they had something. You see Travis Kelce do something like that. Like, dude, can you just not for
It's nice.
one
It's like, what
game?"
do you say? Amari Cooper brought a little Kansas City to Buffalo,
Yeah,
and I thought, can you just can you let the moment breathe for a moment and
literally.
just give the Bills credit
Right.
for that? Are you upset that you haven't seen Kansas City do it? So you're like, I've got to make them like this. It's
It was the
anybody that
most
doesn't think
frustrating
that
thing
he's
because it was one of the great, and if it was like Kansas City was the first team to do it,
right.
because I know Travis likes to lateral from time to time. I realize that, but they're not the first team to do it. It's been
And
around for years.
and they haven't done it. They haven't done
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. Like it has not happened yet. But
Right.
I just,
So if you see Kansas, like he could bring it up, like now he needs to give the Bills credit when he sees
yep.
the Chiefs inevitably do it down the road because Patrick Mahomes, that little wine baby, will want that kind of credit. He'll want
Yeah. Oh, he walked into the meetings today and was like, all right, so next
what
game we
up?
gotta find when we get to the goal line, huddle up, guys. When we get to the goal line, I need Travis to catch it and throw it back to me. Like if they play a snow game and they have a really good run, will Collinsworth be like, man, they like there's a little James Cook out there. Like it
No.
just every
Yeah.
time.
Speaking of though, like fast forward, I am so disappointed in the playing on Saturday on the 21st and then having to turn around and play again on the 24th or on the 25th.
Yeah, that
Seems dangerous
a
for both
bit.
teams
I'm
because both
curious.
teams are playing. They
Yeah,
teams the both teams play Sunday, then they play Saturday, then they play Wednesday.
yeah.
It seems a little.
Why didn't the players union step in there? Like I feel like they would have stopped that from happening.
I am confused about that one. I think it's going clearly the Steelers. I mean, like most teams have trouble playing Thursday nights if they don't come off a bye. Like
Yes.
going from Sunday to Thursday, those games are usually painful to watch because
Hmm.
both teams are exhausted. And I,
Yeah.
yeah. So, moving on. What did you think of the episode?
What I thought of sisterhood above all.
Yes.
Um, I thought it was I thought it was a good episode. I really enjoyed the backstory, but it did take off the momentum of the last episode. But that's expected with most
Right.
flashback episodes. They usually
Right.
drop it in right when some bombshell's been dropped.
Sure.
Um, so it was see kind of the motivations for Valia and Tulia Harkonnen. Like I thought that was good, but I think I was more wanting the story to move forward, I guess. And maybe that's selfish of me because the backstory was really good.
Oh, yeah.
I was ready to see what happened next.
I agree with you. I think had had the season had it's hard to say because it's like it's in the process of the season. Like I was gonna say, had the season not been 6 episodes long, but we're not finished with 6 episodes, but still we know it's only gonna be 6 episodes long. You're just like, I know no matter what series you do, there's going to be a flashback episode.
Yep.
Like there's going to be some sort of like, then here's the motivation behind X, Y, and Z. And so we knew we were going to get it. It's just, it feels like there's probably no good place to put it in 6 episodes. because you're like, if they did it in episode two, would be like, it's too soon. Like
We don't
we
know about
haven't,
these characters enough
right,
to care.
right. And then like you do it in episode four, you're like, oh God, like you're, what are you doing? We're
Yeah.
almost done,
Yeah, they're in a tough spot. Kind of like the epilogue episode of Agatha, where it was like the finale was the finale, but the next episode, that was
You
the only
needed,
place they could have put it.
right. You needed it, but there was no good spot for it to be.
Yeah,
And so it makes it kind of clunky.
yeah.
I think the things that happen in it and the things that are revealed in it and some of the twists that we'll get
You
into,
mean that Jarvis is, Tony Stark apparently went to the past or the whatever and built that for him?
right? That you have two Game of Thrones people in it. You have it Robert Baratheon, who was the uncle.
Yes, yes.
Robert Baratheon's in it, and then Oliver Tully
They
from
just got him on the HBO payroll.
I'm like,
They
man,
called
they
him up. We got
once,
something
yeah,
for you.
once you were, it's like a Harry Potter movie. Like once you were like there's a set amount of
Yes.
characters that they're going to use for HBO series, and they just go down that list and be like, hey, we've got a new series. Would you be interested in? Yeah. So yeah, you have a Robert Baratheon and Oscar Tully show up in it. One is a Harkonnen, one is an Atreides.
Yes.
But so yeah, it is a flashback episode. We do find out that these sisters did not originally attend the Bene Gesserit school together.
Correct.
That was uh took place afterwards after the brother is killed. They never really do say if he is killed by Atreides or if it's they just assume it and they decide to go full warfare on it, but
Yeah,
he ends
that
up
caught me
dead.
off guard. Like it went from them talking about, I'll follow you to the ends of the earth, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next scene, he's dead. I was like, oh, okay.
Right. And yeah,
With no context.
right. You're to assume that the Atreides had something to do with his death, although it is actually never said, which could lead you to the theory of the Bene Gesserit maybe was behind his death. And that might be a twist that they have later on, as far as like it really wasn't the Atreides. It was, come to find out it was the sisterhood because you had Mother Raquella say to Valia, I've known about you for a while. I had my eye on
Yeah.
you for a while, for like,
I clocked that too, and I was like,
but why?
okay.
But why and how? You're creeping me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do see that the family, there, Vorian Atreides is brought up a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Um, which I have seen on a few things that is a theory people are throwing out as far as who Desmond Hart, yes,
Mm.
might be. Um, that he might be Vorian Atreides. I don't know. Like I said, because they mentioned him a lot. And
Yes.
apparently the lore in the books is that he kind of disappears and reappears like all over the universe. So,
Interesting.
right.
I did, okay. I wondered if Hart was a real last name or not. I guess my question was with him, how long has he been with the like he was just a soldier. He was nothing
Right.
special. So I was curious how long he was with the emperor and empress,
Right.
just waiting to put his plan into motion.
Hmm.
I liked just being a fan of the Dune movies that we got more Harkonnen and Atreides beef.
Right. You
Um,
see that this is a feud that is just going to keep increasing
yes.
throughout 10,000 years. Like, there at no point
Right.
do these two not hate each other for
Well,
some
the
reason?
one guy tried after making another Spice Baby, and then that didn't work. So,
Ori Atreides.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
he tried to mend the fence, but Talia was on a side quest, so she was
Yeah.
not having that.
Yeah, what did you think of that? Were you surprised? I was surprised. I kind of, oh, back up. They did a good job as far as not showing their hand in whose family she was glamping with.
Yes. Yes.
um, until the men were chanting Atreides, Atreides, and then you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
And me, I never once thought, oh, she's a spy. Even at that point, I just thought, oh, something went bad, and obviously then, but even then, like, I don't know how much they've really mentioned Atreides as older adults. I know that,
Right.
I mean, like, they've
Right.
mentioned a whole bunch while they were younger, but as the elders in the school, have they really talked about Atreides? I know she found the fact that Kieran Atreides was the rebel within, like she was kind of perked up at that. And
Yes.
so, yeah, you're kind of like, oh, is she interested in it? Because when Tula said, I took care of everybody, did she think there were any more out there and thought and was
Right.
like, wait a minute,
Did
so
she think
Tula,
she ended the bloodline?
right. And she was like, oh, wait, Tula let somebody miss somebody with that Albert slash
Yeah.
Oscar. So it's like, is she interested in, like, truly didn't follow through? You like you left out a few deets here, and we thought it was over, but it's not.
Yeah. And I thought so when I saw Tula with the group of men,
Hmm.
I didn't know who they were.
Right.
But when she was working at the table and the guy was kind of like grilling her, lightly interrogating her,
Okay.
and she was hesitant to say who she was, there was a small part of me that was like, okay, so who is she with if she's guarding her name? But then
Right.
I was like, well, everybody hates the Harkonnen, so it could literally be anyone, and she
Right.
didn't want to tell them who it was. So, like,
Right.
I don't want to say I called it being the Atreides that she was glamping with, but when he was lightly interrogating her and she was being very reserved, there was a part of me that questioned, okay, so who are they? But then I let it go, and then obviously you find out, and I think we're 3 episodes in, and we've got three intimate scenes in each episode.
Right.
I don't like to overanalyze them, although we both agree the last episode that was just
Painful.
two people that have never done it before were like, it was just not great. But I will say the sound mixing, it sounds super creepy, but the sound mixing with what those two, Tula and whatever his name is, were doing,
Ori.
Orin, with them
Ori. Yeah.
chanting Atreides, I thought, like, when I saw that, I'm like, and I know she heard it, I'm like, okay, so she knows who they are.
Right.
They are very proud to say who they are. So it's not, so she knew because
Right.
they're not hiding who they are.
Right.
So that's when my mind kicked back into gear, like, okay, really well done letting us see, like, is she really enjoying it? Because it looks like
Right.
she is, but she's hearing this. And so then the wheel started turning, like, okay, has she moved on or is something afoot? Now, I did not expect the next
Her,
scene of everyone being slaughtered. Like, you
she pulled
really
an
hit that
Arya.
one. Yeah,
She pulled an Arya Stark, did she not?
exactly. Like the wheels were turning, so I knew something was up at that moment. The climax, you could say. I knew something was up, but I didn't expect her to pull an Arya Stark in that situation.
Yeah, I had noticed before he said, "Why is it so quiet?" I had noticed that they didn't have like any music, any background,
I
nothing.
didn't catch that.
And I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of like this. It's something's weird.
Yeah.
It's dead silent." But again hadn't expected that. But was like, something feels weird right now because she was trying to sneak out,
Yes.
uh, and I thought, why is she trying to sneak out? But yeah, no, it was a shock that she is actually Probably the scarier of the two sisters.
That was the reveal because so far Valia has been the more
Outwardly
alpha
aggressive.
of the two of them, the
Yes.
dominant one, the one that says how she feels. Like when she walks in, everybody pays attention.
Right.
And then Tula's been there,
But seems
but
so submissive.
exactly,
Yeah.
she seems so submissive. It seems like she was, yeah, like cowering behind Valia's dominance. And then with this episode, it's like they flipped it
Oh yeah.
because now on the same side of that, now I realize I'd be scared too, but Valia is now in the opposite position because she's still reeling from the fact that Desmond kind of just ignored the voice and has now been banned from the kingdom. And yeah, she like regrouped and was like, I've been banned before. They've banned the Bene Gesserit before. So you saw like she wasn't backing down, but the image of her being kind of terrified with Desmond paired with on the opposite, Tula being like, oh no, like I have a dark side. I thought that was extremely well done.
Oh yeah. That she's a very good liar and very calm about it. And
Yes.
poison being the choice of weapon of women. And just, yeah, like that, she ends up being like the one where you're like, ooh, you are the scary one. You are the one that you may not use the voice and be out, but because you're not the outwardly aggressive one, that you need to be watched more. And the
Ex
fact that
even
like
more, yeah,
she's
you need to be watched even more because Valia will lay her cards on the table. So it's
right.
like you kind of see, like, they heard all this
You know
different,
what you're getting.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's completely different with Tula. And yeah, again, they did a very good job in that episode of establishing that.
And that she's willing to go behind her sister's back to resurrect or keep on ice or spice up, make a spice baby out of Lila. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that yeah, she is
using
the
AI technology to do that in like in the middle of the sister, like not off on a distant planet somewhere in my
mm,
secret lab. Like, no,
in
you
the
have the secret
basement.
lab at the headquarters.
In the basement. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was yeah, and you really do see in kind of what you were saying about Valia being the outwardly aggressive one and her kind of a little flustered about the voice not working on Desmond is you do find out that she pretty much started the voice on her own. Like she's the one that has it, introduced it to Raquella,
Yes.
and then and then is kind of like picking and choosing who she's, and then it just kind of becomes a thing with the Bene Gesserit. When you kind of find out that yes, she's had this voice and she's been kind of trying it out more and more in different ways and has is getting more comfortable telling people to pick up knives. Um,
Right. That's just immediately the go-to.
right, like and pick up your knife and like so it's like well obviously I think is that her mom or her aunt that she tells it to, so like obviously she sees that and that's before she ever does it to Dorothea, but
Hmm.
you see this voice, and so when Desmond's statement to her in episode 2 is I know your biggest fear is um people hearing you and not caring, knowing that she is the originator of the voice, he's
Yes.
right
Yes.
because she is used to I've got that, I created that, this is a power, this can change leadership and the destinies of anybody that I come across. That yeah, that is her biggest fear, is literally coming across someone like him and them not listening and not caring and not paying attention to her.
Yep.
So yeah, you kind of like get that extra layer of like, oh, he was right because you were so proud of this voice and the destinies that you can change with it. And for one of the first times you come across somebody and it's not working,
Yeah.
and it takes you back to your family who wasn't listening to you around the table as far as like like please value let it go, this is the life
We're
we've
poor
been
now. We're outcast and we're at peace with that.
Right.
Or the mayor of the peasants is what she called it. Like, and she was not happy with that title.
No, no, she was not, but it looked pretty friggin' miserable.
Yeah, like just the whale fat or whatever they were eating. And
Yes.
I mean, I just am not a cold weather person. So that by itself, I could have all the best food, but if I'm cold, I hate it. So you pair that with basically only having one food option.
Right. And you do get a kind of like the little wink of her uncle. I can't think of what his name was, but it is the character Robert Baratheon, Um, I think it's like Mark Addy plays
Mark Addy, yeah,
yeah, is the actor. I forget.
Evgeny.
Okay, is the her uncle, and you can see kind of like he's probably not as bad as the Baron 10,000 years later, but like you get the hover chair.
Right, exactly. You see, yeah, like that. I mean, obviously that wasn't a mistake, or that was
Right.
on purpose. That was intentional.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, you see him just floating around, and it's like, okay, all
Yeah,
right.
I see where we're going in a few dozen years. And again, is all of this about the gathering, like when she does, like it's very much the Atreides against, it's still, no matter if it's like the Bene Gesserit against this Desmond, the witch hunter, witch killer, whatever you want to call him, or the reckoning, it seems like all of it really always comes down to the Harkonnens versus the Atreides.
Yes,
And somebody will get the upper hand and then somebody flips it and they just keep going back and forth to the point where it is one always creates the other.
yes,
Like, the Atreides, like apparent, the Harkonnens say that they were mislabeled by the Atreides. So they go and they try to, like they're bitter about that. They go try to rectify that. Then a Harkonnen dies. So now a whole clan of Atreides are dead. And then it's like back, and now it's like, then you fast forward to, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Dune 2 by now, but Paul Atreides is a Harkonnen because Jessica is a Harkonnen, and
yep.
and he kills his grandfather? I think he says like grandfather
His
before he's
grandfather and his cousin, he kills both of them. But
right.
after they killed his
His
dad,
father.
it's like in a backstabbing trade-off. I mean, technically the Harkonnens weren't really a part of that. That was the Emperor, but still, Harkonnens killed them. They go through. He kills his grandfather and cousin. Like it really is just a vicious cycle.
Right. It's just because like then the I can never, it's that K word that Quasar.
Yeah, that Kwisatz Haderach or that thing.
That like I wonder how much we're going to get as far as this series um about them wanting to create that down the road.
Yes.
And if they're wanting it to be a Harkonnen, but then it's it that I just have so many questions.
And that's where I'm at. And I think we kind of spoke on it the last time with it only being 6 episodes. Like the movies are great movies, but
Right,
you know the lore goes so much deeper,
right,
and we want to know more about certain things.
right.
And it's like, can you answer at least a third of these questions in only 6 episodes? I don't know.
And you're dealing with the fact that I think from what they said is we're this period of time that this show is taking place of, nothing of this has been written.
Yes, you did mention that there's the Dune books.
Sisterhood of Dune, which is you find out a lot in the House of Harkonnen, House of Atreides,
Yeah.
House of Corino. You get a lot of like who these people are. You're like Vorian Atreides, and I can't think of who the Harkonnen that they kept referring to. The let's see if I can even find his name. The
Harrow
one,
Harkonnen? No.
the one that they say he was he was the one that was called a
The
coward.
coward, yeah.
Right. Well, we'll just call him the coward. I can't think of his name. But like all of there are those people that they're mentioned in the books, but this period of time is not. So it's like, are we are we gonna get it? Like that also is like, are we gonna get answers? Because to me, if you're creating a series where there is no reference material and the next closest reference material is, I mean, I'm speaking out of ignorance. If I don't even know if the next closest reference material would be Dune, or if there's something, let's say, 3,000 years later. I mean, we're talking the 10,000 year,
Yeah.
is it a 10,000 year gap, or is there, I don't, so it's like,
Well, and that's why I think, and I know they're getting a lot of heat right now because everyone hates everything they do, but that's why I like the world of Star Wars.
right,
Because you can get something like the Clone Wars series, and it was animated, so it put off a lot of people, and then Star Wars Rebels, and I mean, they have a lot of books as well, but you look at just the TV stuff, that was, for the most part, uncharted territory
right,
that they did just an excellent job of filling out, bringing in characters and references that you knew from the established books and movies,
right,
but it filled those gaps and
right,
also created more lore. Obviously, Dune doesn't have as much of that. Obviously, I'm not going to be ignorant enough to say it's just the movies. There are the books like you
right.
referenced,
There's
but there is still
so many,
so much
right.
that
Like
is
how,
unaccounted for.
right. Like I feel like if it doesn't it's hard to kind of immediately reference something that's going to happen 10,000 years later. But then are you then going to reference something that happens in a next book?
Right,
Are you trying to hope that this gains such traction that you get another season and that you can stretch these seasons to a next book? Or is there a next book being written? I just
right,
like
exactly.
I it's kind of be like we're like, okay, that was a good story, but I if you want more, again, it's like, okay, well then you're either going to have to make another TV series, but eventually people are going to want to know, oh, it's leading to this.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like,
Well, I mean, that's where we're at with Marvel right now. I mean, they've started to give us a roadmap again, but for a while after the Infinity Saga, we knew that Secret Wars and all this other stuff was a possibility. We knew mutants were a possibility. So basically, anything that came out since Endgame, we've pretty much been like, okay, so how does this get us from here to here? And
exactly
we
right.
need we need the roadmap. If like we need to know how it connects, or is it going to be, like Echo that is kind of just in Oklahoma and doesn't follow the source material at all?
Right. And I think that's the tough spot that a lot of these studios get in with. And I mean, and I say this, and I don't say this in a derogatory way because we consider ourselves geeks. We consider ourselves sci-fi geeks and
Yeah.
comic book, like I think that's kind of the iffy territory that you get into with a geek sphere.
Yes. I've said that pretty much word for word that there are a lot of cool stories that you could tell, but because we know the lore and we know where it goes, if you wanted to just tell a one-off story, we're like, yeah, but how does it connect to this? And if it
Right.
doesn't, it's like, well, why'd you do
Right. Like
that?
it's hard to reference like even like I'm talking about like even like Game of Thrones stuff is like people want to know that's why yeah, I mean like I'm by I know like me and you think differently about the last season. I don't think it's as bad as what people say, but
Yeah,
yeah, it had a lot of faults. But a lot of those faults lay within the fact that they were going off script and making it up while they were going along because
right.
George R. R. Martin is like doing
He's got
everything
a
he
writer's
can,
block for the last decade.
almost 20 years. So you're like, that even with something like that, you've got like Star Wars and Marvel and DC, and because even right now, like as good as the Penguin was, people are like, okay, I want to know how this links up to
Yep.
the second Batman, and what will the second Batman be referencing? Will it be the night? Like, will it? What comic book series are you going to be pulling from? Because I want like that part of being a geek is like having these niche things that
It's
we've
all
all read.
interconnected.
Well,
And
and being so proud of knowing that information that like
yes,
not everybody like, and it's not
yes.
gatekeeping because you want to share it with everybody. You don't care if anybody joins it, but it's like it's part of like, yeah, I've read this stuff. I know what is going on. It's not, I know what these Easter eggs are. I know what, like again, Harry Potter, there was reference material. Like you people are wanting, and again, when you had those prequels of Harry Potter, they didn't do so great.
I remember when the Avengers first came out and you got to the end credit scene, they had just saved the world and they talk about like they fought back, blah, blah, blah. And to go against, I forget what he said exactly, but he said to go against you is to court death.
Right.
And then this big purple guy with a triple chin turns and smiles at the camera. And that was one of those moments where you're
And it's
looking
like,
around like, I know who that is.
right,
I know who that is.
it's
I
the
know what he's
Leonardo
talking about
DiCaprio.
courting death. Like, I know. And back then, not a whole lot of people did.
Right.
People didn't know who Thanos was. People didn't know well, what to court death actually meant. And, they ended up not using that storyline for the Infinity
But
Gauntlet.
you knew.
But I knew, yes.
Right. You got the Easter egg. You got the, even if they weren't going to go down that path, that line meant something to you as a comic
Yes.
book reader.
Yes.
Like you got, it was the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like
Yeah.
pointing and he's like that, or
Yes.
even just the Captain America where he says, "I understood that reference." Like he
Exactly.
wants everybody to know, "Hey, I got that."
Yes.
So it's like it's when you get into these geekdom type of things, I think anytime you pull something that has reference material, it's a delicate walk that you need to do
For
to
sure.
make it make sense to the people that have read it or the people that are going to read it. Because even if, like, let's say you haven't read Dune, up to this point, I'm sure more people picked up the Dune books after these movies had come out.
Oh, no doubt.
And if like oh, you just feel like you are in the know, that you're in on the secret, that you're in this club of
Yeah.
like, oh, I get it, like I get these little things. Like that's the reason we watch our breakdowns that we do of every show that we see it, because we're like, oh, we know we have seen it, we know what they're referencing, but like we kind of like, oh, it's kind of like all the geeks in like a club going, I knew that, like that's good,
Exactly.
like it's paying off kind of like finally for being a dork, my entire
Right.
like thank
Right.
you, like it's finally cool to be a dork, like you're asking me now, instead of like
Exactly.
it's one of
So,
the things, there's predictability in it and you kind of get
exactly.
comfort in that, because I mean like we've got our sports and those are unpredictable unless you're watching a Chiefs game. But I mean like it's like
I appreciate that.
there's a comfort and a predictability that you're like, I may not exactly know what's coming next, but I might have an idea.
Yes.
So
I agree. My other thoughts, Sister Jen is ready to be pushed off the ledge. She is ready.
yeah.
And Sister Jen,
Yeah, we're
like,
getting, yeah, it's going to be episode 4. So somebody,
yeah.
your prediction is that somebody, I believe you had, Constantine was dead by episode 4.
Yes. Yes. I think this is it for him, possibly. I just seeing Lila dead on the table, knowing that, like we said, is not she is not a sisterhood above all type of
No,
sister.
no.
And she feels that she was forced, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Forced,
Yes,
lied
to
to, kind of like
doing the
bamboozled.
agony. Yeah,
Yeah.
into doing the agony, exploited into doing the
Yes.
agony, and it ended up killing her, and she had to do it way too soon. Like again, to reference Star Wars, like sending a Padawan into a war and then being like, "What? They died? They didn't even pass the Jedi trials yet." Like, and
Right.
Sister Jen kind of clocked it and said it out loud, and the sisterhood, the mother was like, "Nope, it's sisterhood above all." She knew the risk and she voluntarily, bravely went into it, and it's like, okay. And they basically said sisterhood above all for the mission. We follow these rules, blah blah blah. And I think when she finds out that Tula's got this secret lab breaking every rule, like yes, she's trying to bring her back, but I feel like she's going to be like, you are breaking so many rules. I think that's going to push her over the edge.
And the fact that the sisterhood above all that they even push is kind of a lie because them as Harkonnens don't even believe it. Like it's they don't even buy that sisterhood above all because it's yeah, it's sisterhood above all, but it's sisterhood above all as long as it's pushing the Harkonnen agenda. Like
Exactly.
it's not it's yeah, it's not a it's the only person that was really sisterhood above all was Dorothea, who was like who they still don't like they when they talked about like she went away to I forgot where she was sent off to um and she I think it was with the Carino, a Carino
Yeah.
family. She was in the Carino Empire Imperium, and she comes back like super fanatical, and that like Raquel's like I don't even know who my kid is anymore, but it's like
Hmm.
um you kind of wonder if like that has anything to do with the empress that's there right now, if like because she's super religious but she's not about the
Yeah.
sisterhood, but then she could then like I said Dorothea comes back and she's like sisterhood above all, but she's like a religious fanatic, which again you can kind of see then playing out on Arrakis later in I think the southern hemisphere when they said
Yeah.
that they have a whole bunch of the religious fanatics that take it to a whole other level. But like you kind of wonder like okay what happened to her during that period of time that she was and again it goes back to like you're opening a lot of doors here, like
Yep.
it's you're opening some doors and you're halfway through the show.
Yeah. Which that's kind of been a reoccurring issue that we've talked about on this podcast with a myriad of shows is opening too many doors and not having the time to close them. Shows that we've gone over and reviewed on this podcast, and then just shows that I've watched on my own. Like the show Titans was like the live action Teen Titans on HBO. I didn't love it. It wasn't great, but the reoccurring issue that they did, I think they were on there for 3 or 4 seasons, but the reoccurring issue every single season was the same thing. And it was they would open way too many doors. And then you got to the second to last episode and you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
We've only closed two
There was like, yeah, we closed 2 doors.
out of
And like,
eight.
like, it kept happening all 4 seasons. And I'm like, what do you guys not, do the writers not know how many episodes they're going to be cleared for? And it's just a reoccurring
That's
issue across television right now, and it's something that
the assumption that you're going to get a second season out of it. And I
yeah,
get leaving the door open for a second season if it becomes popular. So you're not like pulling a Moana and you're just kind of retreading the first movie over again. Um, which get prepared now for Moana
yeah,
3 to do the exact same thing.
really,
Well, side note, apparently Moana was supposed to be a series now on
yes, I knew
yes,
that.
and then now they're transferring anyway, it's just it again, a retread of so again, I get like leaving a little bit open, but if you don't start wrapping things up, you're gonna end up with the acolyte. You're
A
gonna end up with like
continuation of the main story banking on a second season is fine, but your side stories mostly all need to be wrapped up except for maybe like one.
you're
And
gonna end up
that
with
is
the
the
yeah.
reoccurring issue because yeah, you've got whatever the main story is that you can leave on a cliffhanger, and then maybe one of the side characters. turns out to be a villain, and you find that out in the finale. Like, okay, like main story, one side plot that carries over. But when you open six doors and five of them are still opened,
That's why I think the Penguin did so good because they
yeah.
did leave that door open, obviously with the bat signal, but you could have wrapped that up and you don't ever have to even be like, oh, I bet it, like you could just be
Right.
like, if nothing ever else happened, one, you have reference material and be like, I know kind of that these two have a history together, but it could have just been it. It could be done.
Yep.
I think like Agatha right now is suffering with like you did open a lot of doors, you didn't close all of them, you closed most of them. It was good, but you now have set yourself up like there better be something, whether it be this new Vision Quest series that comes out or
You
whatever
better
it
be
is.
casting Tommy right now. There better be casting calls out in Georgia, which I think
Right.
is where they filmed it. Like, that's
Right.
one of those
That's a
things.
huge door that you're opening that like this better be resolved at some point. So it's like I I wish somebody was on staff. Maybe there is. I don't know. Like, and then they just wad up the piece of paper and they just throw it away when there's just too many doors open. They just pretend
Right.
pretend like this doesn't happen. But I hope somebody's keeping track of it because again, you know, geeks like they like answers. We like the Easter eggs. We want the knowledge. We have all the knowledge. We don't want you to just start making up stuff and us be like, I didn't read 87 Dune novels for you to just make up something, like
Exactly. Right.
to you to go off script and just make
Yeah.
something up from here on out. Like that's not why I bought, your entire family's legacy of books for you to just then just go
Right.
off. That's so yeah. Do you have any theories for this episode?
I mean,
Not really.
not really. My
Okay.
question is, so we know um who the floating Harkonnen is. The
Yeah.
skinny dude that opened the door, that was one of the boys from the beginning.
He was at the wedding or the engagement party. Yes, he's the one that kind of went to Carino and was like talking about whale seed.
Yes. Okay, I was like, why do I feel like I saw this guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, it was getting on my nerves because I'm like,
Yeah.
I've seen you, but I
Right.
don't
Yes.
remember who you were.
Yes. He talked
Okay.
about whale seed at the party, and
Yes.
and Carino just kind of like brushed him off, like yeah. Havako just kind of was like, "But I really don't want to talk about sperm right now."
Yeah.
Like that's So yeah, I don't know what.
I don't really have any because this last episode, again, there was a little bit of moving the story forward, but so much of it was flashbacks. And
I mean,
I mean,
obviously we're. As I say, obviously we're still on the theory that obviously that they're going to resurrect Lila.
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Obviously, that one is still in play. Like that part was moved forward. I
Yes.
thought she was going to come back in this episode, and I didn't
Yes.
think it was going to need the use of technology to do it. So that part was surprising, but I'm
Yes.
curious to see if and
And
when she comes back possessed.
do you who do you are we still on the agreement that we think she's coming the door is going to be Dorothea?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm still on that one. I don't think anything has changed. I think that if and when she comes back with the help of Jarvis, she's going to come back possessed by Dorothea, and she's going to be back, which is going to inform the rest of the sisters that you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Because, like,
Right.
let's say she does save her, how does Tula explain that to the sister? Like, is she going to resurrect her and then sneak her off and be like in her mind, how does she see this playing out?
And she's alive.
Yeah, she's alive. So she's alive. Like, oh my God, you're alive. I'm so happy. By the way, I told everyone you're dead, so you have to leave and never come back.
Yeah. It
Ever.
was very much an episode of fighting death.
Yes.
Um, yes. And their relationship with death and how, I mean, Tula's very comfortable with it. I mean, she tries to be um gentle with it in her poison. um, but yeah, I think going to be Valia fighting a war kind of on two fronts here. I think she's going to be fighting obviously Desmond and Dorothea at the Sisterhood, and it kind of we're going to see if the Harkonnens take a step back or if they just keep building power. It's 10,000 years though. I mean, like that's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot that can happen. Like I again, that's you know, I know they're banking on a second. I know this is HBO. They are banking on a second season.
No doubt.
As long as these Dune movies come out, they're going to want in on that. So we don't know. We're holding true to the theories we have so far. It looks like one of them really is gonna play out. But yeah, we're got 3 episodes left, so I guess we'll see where it goes from here. So
Yes.
I guess, until then, we will sisterhood above all.
Yes.
Bye.
Let's see ya.